So before going to the topic compound interest, we have to take an example to observe the difference between simple interest and compound interest. Definitely that give a good command over the topic compound interest. So take an example. Suppose 10,000 rupees that is lent for a period of 2 years at the rate of 10% per annum. 10,000 rupees that is lent for a period of 2 years at the rate of 10% per annum. But as we discussed in the previous topic, simple interest, the formula for simple interest, that is PNR by 100. So here the principal is 10,000 and the number of years, that is 2, and the rate of interest is 10. So if you apply the formula for simple interest as PNR by 100, we can get 2,000 rupees as simple interest at the end of 2 years. So here the principal is 10,000 and the number of years is 2 and the rate of interest is 10% per annum. By applying the formula simple interest, that is obtained as PNR by 100, that is 2,000 rupees. Without entering into this formula, we can have a general discussion. Here the time period is given as 2 years. This is the first year and this is the second year. The principal is given as 10,000 rupees and the rate of interest is 10% per year, per annum, right? In the first year, if you take 10% out of 10,000, no doubt 1,000 rupees can be obtained as interest. 10% of 10,000, that is 1,000 rupees, that can be obtained as interest in the first year. In the second year also, the principal value, that is 10,000. On this 10,000 rupees, we can charge 10% interest. So again, that will be 1,000 rupees for the second year. So 10,000 rupees, that is a principal. On 10,000 rupees at 10%, 1,000 rupees can be obtained as interest in the first year, and again 1,000 rupees can be obtained as interest in the second year also. So in total, at the end of 2 years, the simple interest is 1,000 plus 1,000, 2,000 rupees. So at the end of 2 years, the simple interest is obtained as 2,000 rupees. So without entering into the formula, we can get the simple interest as 2,000 rupees at the end of 2 years. And coming to the concept of compound interest, here the time period is given as 2 years. First year, second year. And the principal is, that is given as 10,000 rupees. On 10,000 we can charge 10%. So therefore 1,000 rupees can be obtained as interest at the end of first year. But as per the compound interest concept, we have to settle the previous account at the end of the stipulated time. We have to settle the previous account at the end of the stipulated time. Here the rate of interest is given as 10% per annum, 10% per year. So at the end of every year, we have to settle the previous account. At the end of every year, we have to settle the previous account. That can be named as compounding. We have to add the interest value to the principal value. So at the end of first year, the interest is 1,000 and that can be added to previous principal value 10,000. So for the next term, for the second year, 11,000 rupees can be taken as the principal value. So they have to settle the previous account at the end of every year. So at the end of the first year, this interest 1,000 rupees, it can be added to the principal value. So for the second term, for the second year, the principal is 11,000 rupees. On 11,000, you have to charge 10%, which will be equal to 1,100. So 1,100, that is equivalent to 10% of 11,000. So you have to calculate 10% out of 11,000, and this 1,100 can be the interest in the second year. So at the end of 2 years, the compound interest is 1000 rupees plus 1100, which will be equal to 2100. If suppose we are interested in the third year, we have to add 1100 rupees to 11,000. So suppose for the purpose of third year, the principal will be equal to 12,100. 1,100 plus 11,000. So that will be 12,100. So if you are interested in the third year, you have to charge 10% rate of interest on 12,100, which will be equal to 1,210 rupees. So what you have to observe is, the first difference between simple interest and compound interest is, in case of simple interest, the principal value it remain unaltered for any number of years. The principal value it remain the same for any number of years in the case of simple interest. But in the case of compound interest, the principal value increases periodically. So here the principal is 10,000 for the first year, and it is 11,000 for the second year, and it is 12,100 for the third year, like that. So in the case of simple interest, the principal value remains same for any number of years. But in case of compound interest, the principal value increases periodically. You have to settle the previous account at the end of the stipulated time. And again back to the example. In this example, the simple interest at the end of 2 years, that is obtained as 2000, and the simple interest and the compound interest at the end of 2 years, that is obtained as 2100. So here what we have to observe is, the simple interest for 2 years, that is 2000, and the compound interest for 2 years is 2100. The difference between these two, that is 100 rupees. No doubt compound interest will be more than the simple interest. Friends, what you have to observe is, there is no change in simple interest and compound interest for the first term. For the first term, for the first year, both simple interest and compound interest are same. The difference starts from the second year onwards. So what you have to observe is, at the end of 2 years, the simple interest is 2000. At the end of 2 years, the compound interest is 2100. And the difference between these two, that is equal to 100. And how we are going to define this 100 is, this 100 rupees is nothing but the interest collected on first year's interest in the second year. I repeat it. There is no difference between simple interest and compound interest for the first year. And at the end of the second year, the difference between compound interest and simple interest is 100 rupees, which can be defined as the interest collected on first year's interest in the second year. So in detail, what is the interest for the first year? 1000 rupees. If you collect 10% on this 1000 rupees in the second year, you can get 10% out of 1000 as 100 rupees. So at this level, you have to put much more stress. The difference between compound interest and simple interest at the end of 2 years is nothing but the interest collected on first year's interest during the second year. So here the interest for the first year is 1000, and you have to collect 10% on this 1000 rupees, which is equal to 100. So the 2 points what you have to remember: in case of simple interest, the principal value remains same for any number of years. In case of compound interest, the principal value increases periodically. Next one, there will be no difference between simple interest and compound interest at the end of first year or first term. The difference starts from the second term onwards. At the end of 2 years, the difference between compound interest and simple interest is nothing but the interest collected on first year's interest during the second year. So this is the first point. This is the combination of simple interest and compound interest. And coming truly to the concept of compound interest, in the previous example, we took the principal as 10,000, and the time period is 2 years. The rate of interest is 10% per annum. So what we observed that is 2100 rupees that can be obtained as compound interest at the end of 2 years. Without applying any formula, we got 2100 rupees as compound interest on 10,000. But in general, there is another method, there is another formula. Amount can be obtained by using the formula P into 1 plus R by 100 power n. Amount can be obtained by using the formula principal into 1 plus R by 100 power n. So in this case, the principal is 10,000. The rate of interest is given as 10, of course 10% per annum, and the number of years, that is 2, right? So amount is equal to principal value 10,000 into 1 plus R by 100 power n. So here this value can be taken as 110 by 100, and because it exists square, we can take 10,000 rupees into 110 by 100 into 110 by 100, and you can get 12,100 as the final amount. So by using the formula, amount is equal to P into 1 plus R by 100 power n, we got the amount as 12,100. So here what you have to observe is the principal is 10,000 and the amount is 12,100. So therefore compound interest is nothing but amount minus principal value. So 12,100 minus 10,000. So here 2,100 that can be obtained as the compound interest. So the two formulae what you have to remember, amount is equal to P into 1 plus R by 100 power n. That is the first formula to find out the final amount. And compound interest can be obtained by using the formula amount minus principal value. But at this level, I can suggest one more thing. Even without remembering this formula, we can calculate the compound interest like this, because the initial sum of money, that is 10,000, and the rate of interest is given as 10% per annum. What you have to observe is the sum deposited must be increased by 10% per year. As you all know that if a quantity increases by 10%, it becomes 110%. So we can write the fraction 110 by 100 for 2 times. If suppose the time period is 3 years, we have to reproduce the same fraction. If suppose the time period is 4 years, we have to produce the fraction for 4 times. So like that, we can calculate the amount value. From that amount, we can subtract principal value. And one more example, if suppose the rate of interest is given as 8% per annum instead of 10%, we can apply 108 by 100 here, 108 by 100. So 10,000 rupees into 108 by 100 into 108 by 100, that gives the amount value. If suppose the rate of interest is 13% per annum, here we have to make use of the fraction 113 by 100 into 113 by 100. So remembering the formula for amount is not required. Even without remembering the formula, we can apply the concept of compound interest. We can find out the amount first of all. From that amount, we have to subtract the principal value. There you can get the compound interest. So it is not necessary to apply the formula. Next, one more point is, if you observe different bank examination papers or different staff selection commission examination papers, the most repeatedly asked question is the difference between compound interest and simple interest. The difference between compound interest and simple interest. Most commonly asked question. For that, without spending much more time, we can straight away make use of two formulae. The first formula is P is equal to 100 square into D by R square. This is applicable for 2 years term. P is equal to 100 square into D by R square. That is for 2 years. And the second formula is P is equal to 100 cube into D by R square into 300 plus R. this is applicable for a time period of 3 years. These two formulae, they are applicable when we are interested in the difference between compound interest and simple interest, right? So by applying these two formulae and the basic concept of calculating compound interest, we can go through different examples as per the previous questions appeared from different bank examinations, right? The first one is, find the compound interest on 6,000 rupees for 3 years at 10% per annum. So here the principal is given as 6,000 rupees and the time period is given as 3 years and the rate of interest is given as 10% per annum, right? But in case of compound interest cannot be obtained directly by a single formula as in the case of simple interest. So you have to recollect it. In case of simple interest, we can directly get the simple interest by using the formula PNR by 100. But in case of compound interest, first of all you have to calculate the amount. Here the principal is 6,000 and the rate of interest is 10%. So you have to make use of the fraction 110 by 100 for 3 times because the time period is given as 3. So with this you can calculate the final amount. We can calculate the final amount as 6,986. We can calculate the final amount, the 7,986, that will be the final amount. But this 7,986, that is a amount minus principal value, that give the compound interest. So therefore 1,986 rupees, that is a compound interest obtained on 6,000 rupees. Friends, what you have to observe is, if suppose we are interested in using the formula amount is equal to P into 1 plus R by 100 power n. So here what you have to observe is, this is nothing but the other form of this one, because 1 plus 10 by 100 is equal to 110 by 100 and 110 by 100 that appear for 3 times. So remembering the formula, it is not that much required. So even without remembering the formula, we can go for the calculation part. So we can get the amount as 7,986, that amount minus principal value, that give the compound interest, right? So here the compound interest is equal to 1,986 rupees, right? And one more example, find the compound interest on 6,250 rupees for 2 years at 4% per annum. So amount can be obtained 6,250 into 104 by 100 into 104 by 100, because the rate of interest is given as 4. So I have to make use of the fraction 104 by 100. But here let us concentrate less on the calculation part, because calculation part there is no substitution for calculation part, right? First of all you have to find out the final amount, that amount minus 6,250, that give the compound interest. So only thing is you have to go through the calculation part in your free time. So first of all you have to find out the final amount, that minus 6,250, that give the compound interest value. Next example, find the compound interest on 12,000. So here the principal is 12,000 at the rate of 10% per annum for a period of 2 years 6 months. Friends, what you have to observe is, if suppose the time period is 2 years, we can make use of the fraction 12,000 into 110 by 100 into 110 by 100. If suppose the time period is 2 years, that can be ended by using the fraction 110 by 100, 110 by 100. But in this problem the time period is 2 years 6 months, and for the part of the 6 months we have to write one more fraction. So for that we have to get a detailed knowledge, because the rate of interest is given as 10% per annum or 10% per year. If suppose it is 10% per year, then what will be